Hello, everyone. This is the EPAD Academy webinar for the first time open to the entire audience for the EPAD Consortium members. And today with us, we have Judy and Harry, but also Alicia from Aridia, and they're going to talk about accessing EPAD LCS datasets.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. Okay, so we're going to start this presentation just by showing you how to get access to the EPAD datasets, but we're not going to spend a lot of time on this because we want to spend much more time on how to use the workspaces and engage with the data there. So the reason for showing you the EPAD web page, front page, is this is how the process starts. You'll see at the top here, there is a box called EPAD LCS Research Access. If you press on that button there, it will take you to a subsite of the EPAD website, and here you'll find all the information you need about getting hold of the EPAD LCS data as partners. So the information that you need is all here, and the instructions are described here and fairly simple. First of all, there is a list of existing research projects, and to have a look at that, that downloads an Excel spreadsheet. So you can let that happen and have a quick look at what other people are doing. So that's how you can have a look at all of the different research projects that are up and running. If you'd like to collaborate or join any one of those research questions, then please email us on the contact form at the bottom here, and we'll put you in touch with the people who are working on that project. The way in which you get access to the data is to tell us a little bit about what you're planning to do, and then you can access the data through a system called WiseHive. It gives you information here about connected to WiseHive. What WiseHive does is it allows us to understand all of the requests that are being made, and that includes both partner and external access. So when you're doing this, you will click on the button very early on in the questions that says, are you an EPAD partner? If you are a member of a partner organization or a member of one of our trial delivery centers, then you are considered for the purposes of the research access process to be a partner, full partner, and you will have those privileges as you go through the system. And what that basically means is you have access to this data for 6 months before anybody has access to it external to the EPAD project. And for access to data only, there are no approvals in the process. It runs straight through, and you'll get the access that you're requesting. So you very simply follow these instructions. You begin the application process here, and that will open the WiseHive screen. You fill in a very simple application form to get a WiseHive account. You do that just once, and then once you've done that, you will go through a log-on process which allows you to get into WiseHive and fill in an application. If you're a partner application, you can choose to share information about your research project, and we would strongly encourage you to do so, because that helps collaboration across the academy, across the partners, in order to ensure that we are delivering research and delivering papers that are complementary to each other and are supporting the value of the data that we have generated. So we really would encourage you to share the plans for your research, but as a partner, there is no requirement for you to do so. There are a lot of boxes that are required for you to fill in, but most of them you can fill in as not applicable or NA as a partner. The thing to look out for most is the information about login details. And as you go through the process, you will find that you're asked for the names of all of the people who are in the research project. And Harry's going to show you in the Aridia platform how those users of the Iridia platform are able to access the space and what tasks and activities they can do. But it's most advantageous to you as researchers to provide that information about those users of the data at the early stage, because then we can set up your workspace with all of the people that you want to engage on that research. They can all be set up for you in advance. So I'm not going to say any more because I really want us to spend the most possible time looking at the Iridia platform. There is a lot of other supporting media, the access to the protocols, the dataset definitions, the information pack for the database, which is currently available, and some helpful WiseHive guides, little videos for you to watch to take you through the process. As folk from the Academy and those who know me, having been in the project a long time, I'm very willing to take questions and help you individually. While I'm involved in the research access process. So please don't feel that you have to struggle on your own. If you're not finding something simple to use, then please just get in touch and I'll help you with that. But I would encourage you to follow the instructions here. And hopefully we've made it as user-friendly as we possibly can to, first of all, set up a WiseHive account and then to be able to make a request for access. Once that request is sent off to Iridia, Iridia will set you up on their platform. So I'm going to pass you over to Harry, who's going to show you how to get into that platform and how to work with the data once you get there. Let's pass over to Harry. That would be brilliant.
Great. Right, I'm just clicking to show my screen now. So once you've completed the WiseHive form and had your account set up, you'll get an email to set up your password, and once that's set up, you can access the platform and log in from here. So entering your username and password, you can log in, and this is the two-factor authentication. So this is the reason why you'll be asked for a phone number as part of the WiseHive application. And you won't be seeing this, but I'm just getting a push request sent to my phone, which I have to accept before I'm logged in. Right, so this is the view you'll first see when you log in. I've got access to a whole set of workspaces. For most of you, you'll probably have access to just the one workspace, but initially, but you can be invited to many other workspaces for different research questions or different projects that are going on. So I'm going to go into just a couple of these workspaces to show what all the different tabs are. So I'm first going to go through just a general kind of navigation overview, so you're all kind of familiar with what the different tools are and what different things you can access within the workspace. And then I'm going to go through feature by feature to show how you can work with the data. So starting off with tools that are designed to be kind of used by anyone, regardless of your technical skill, and then moving on to features where you might need a bit of programming experience or coding experience. So using interacting with the database using SQL, or interacting with the data and doing some data analysis using R. But there's things you can do without needing those skills as well that I want to kind of focus on at the beginning. So I think those should be useful to any project, just to view and join the data and kind of prep your data for analysis. And I'm also going to be linking out to the resources that Judy referenced earlier. So there's these are all accessible through this ERAP page here. So the project protocol and documents on dataset definitions and data information pack. I'll go through those in a bit more detail once we're looking at the data. So the first thing you'll see when you enter your workspace is this home page. So this is one we've customized for these ERAP workspaces, and they've got some links out to useful information for using the workspace that I'm also going to cover here. So for a lot of questions about our workspace, we do have a knowledge base, which is a good place to start searching for answers to some of your questions. So all the features within the workspace should be described here: how to access data within the workspace, how to import and export data, how to invite new users to the workspace. So yeah, you're navigating your workspace, adding new people to your research team, uploading data. You can also access that through this search here, so you can search for terms within the knowledge base if you're looking for something specific, and that'll direct you to appropriate pages for that. We've also got some links out to our other software. So the clinical Dataset Library is something where we've got both a document for describing all the data that's released as part of the EPAD data releases, and also other documents for guidelines for reporting and so on. So as well as to kind of linking to this adding to your research team point, if someone already has an account, the process for adding them to your research team is quite simple. If they don't have an account, you will need to contact us to get them set up with an account. But that's a pretty straightforward process, and there's a contact form here for that as well. I'm just going to jump into a different workspace that doesn't have that same homepage, but it does have, other than that, it's an identical setup. It's got all the same tabs and features within it. So the first one being this summary tab. So this gives you an overview of what's been going on in the workspace, what everyone's been up to, and you can comment on things that people have been doing, and also the resources they're using are usefully linked, so you can go and have a look at the data they were looking at, or the file that they've created, for example. And while we're in here, there's the option to invite or edit members from this page as well. So this is something that if you're the administrator within the workspace, which you will be if you were the person who created the EPAD research access request, you've got the option to invite or edit members in your workspace. So from here, I can search for people who have existing accounts within the system, and I can invite them into the workspace. And if I want them to have administrator privileges as well, I can grant that level of access. I can also, by default, they're invited as a standard user, which allows them access to all the tools within the workspace to write scripts and interact with the data. But there's other levels of access as well if you want them to be able to see what's in the workspace, but not necessarily create new things, write scripts and so on. You can allow them in as an observer. And a contributor role would allow them to add, import things into your workspace, but not interact directly with the data within your workspace. So generally, most users will be standard users or administrator users, but there are cases where this observer or contributor is useful as well. Now, as I was mentioning earlier, if the user isn't within the system, they won't appear in this list. So that's the point where you need to use that contact form to contact us, and we can set them up with an account. We just need their all the same details that you would be providing as part of your WiseHive request, their email address and phone number and name. So saving changes will send off those invites and add those people to the workspace. Okay, this next tab along is the audit tab. Now this is something that only administrator users have access to as well, and this just gives a more detailed overview of what's been going on in the workspace. So this summary is quite a high level of what people have been doing. The audit is a much more fine-grained level of detail about when people have been creating scripts, accessing data sets, or starting up R sessions, for example. So this is just a level, it's a level of transparency and also a level of security on the workspace, that every action that's performed is audited and can be tracked. This next tab along here is the mini apps. So this is one of the features within the workspace. You can create small web-based applications using R and a package called R called Shiny, which some of you may have seen. So this is for, I would say, for creating prototypes of applications that you may want to develop further in the future, sort of showcasing your analysis, putting a UI on top of some interesting analysis that you've done. And I'll show an example of creating an example one of these later in the demo. So this is just one of the features available for presenting analysis at maybe the end of an analysis pipeline. Now this tab is quite important. It's the Datasets tab. So from here, you can see all the datasets that are part of being uploaded to this workspace. Now all these ones prefixed with EPAD LCS are the the data release tables, and these are all described in the data information pack, and the dataset library, which I'll come back to. Now this next tab is the files. So this is where any scripts you've created will go. There's some logical split between scripts and documents and data files that you can create. You can create your own folder structure within here if you like. At the moment, it's mostly just on this one level where we've got our scripts and images all in one location, but this can be organized however is most appropriate to your research. And finally, this tab is the R session. So clicking this will open up a new R session, which if you're familiar with R, will be quite familiar to you. So you can. This is just a standard R session. It's not got the R Studio IDE, which if you're an R user you might be used to, but it does have all the features of R. We'll try this again later, but I may have to apologize that the R session at the moment we are experiencing some live issues with it. And this drop down here allows you to mainly for adding new things into the workspace. So for all the things we've gone through there, we can create a new folder within this file structure. We can create a new file, and from that can be an R file, an RNW file for creating reports, or an SQL file for doing database queries. You can create a new data set. You can create a new mini app. You can upload files from your local machines. So if you've got R scripts or SQL scripts or just text files that you want to share with people, or other rich text format files you want to share with people, they can be uploaded by uploading a file. And then uploading data is a bit more involved because you need to parse that data. But if you have a CSV file that you want to use, maybe to contribute to the analysis, then that can be uploaded through here as well. Okay. So the next thing I was going to do is now look at the actual data in a bit more detail and show some basic joins and filtering of that data that we can do without having any database or SQL knowledge, just by using a point-and-click interface that the platform provides. So the first thing to point out about each of these data sets is that they all have metadata associated with them. So when you click through the data sets here, on the right-hand side, the right-hand panel, there's a title for each of these data sets to give a bit of a more readable description of what this data set is, and also a more in-depth description, and also a URL which will link you out to our clinical dataset library.
Harry, we're not quite seeing that on our screen if you're pointing to it. Ah, there we go. That's much better. That's lovely.
Okay, can you still see it?
Yes, that's working fine now.
Right, sorry, just to go through that again, there's the title, which is just a more readable description of what this dataset contains, and then there's a more in-depth description about what it contains, and finally a URL that will link you out to our clinical dataset library, where there's field level, column level detail about what's contained within this dataset, including, if relevant, lookups for what values can be contained within that column. So this is another system that you will be given access to as part of your EPAD research access request. You'll be given a login and password for the clinical dataset library as well. So going through a few of these, probably going to want to look at the biomarkers, the CDR, which has a better example of a lookup. So if you're familiar with CDR or not, there's numeric values which correspond to some more in-depth descriptions for each of these variables. And also there's a table of patient attributes which we'll look at as part of the join. Now this is a good point to link out to one of these other documents. So as well as having the dataset library, which contains all these dataset definitions, there is also this static dataset definitions document, which you can look at even before you've requested access to the data as part of the supporting media. So this has got a description about, well, first of all, about the data release sets as a whole, but then for each of these EPAD LCS tables, each of the release tables, very similar information at a field level about what's contained within that data set. So this is quite a good place to start even before you've requested access to the data to see what data is available and in what format. Okay, so I've been so far just clicking through, highlighting each of these data sets, but actually clicking on the name of a data set opens it up in a new tab, and you can you get a summary of the different columns. Again, we've got some of the, let's say, metadata to give a bit of a description, as well as a column name for that data. So you've got a bit more idea about what data is contained within there. From here, you can preview that data. So this is now viewing the real data contained within that data set. And in order to begin joining these tables together or performing some simple filters on them, we can click to derive a custom view. So a very simple example of that is that there's a column in here, ApoE sample collected. So was there a sample collected for ApoE? So if we were to perform some analysis that depended on this existing, we could do a simple filter to say, has the ApoE sample been collected? We need that to be yes. If I click verify custom view, this opens up an editor to show what SQL that's generating behind the scenes to be executed. We can actually preview what that result's going to look like. It's going to be very similar, just with some rows filtered out. If you are familiar with SQL at this point, you can now edit the SQL to add in additional clauses or additional filters. And when you're ready, you can click Create Custom View. And creating that will give a new data set, or a new custom view within the Datasets tab. And this saves the actual SQL that was used to execute this. You can preview this. And if you want to continue doing further analysis on this, it's a good idea to create this as a genuine database view as well. But that's all something that you can try out yourself. You can create a pipeline of several steps where you filter once and create one data set, filter again, maybe combine those steps into one at a later date. I'll just use that. So that now creates as a normal database view within the database, and people can interact with this in any way they can interact with another data set within the workspace. So that's a very simple example where all we've done is add a filter. But as I mentioned earlier, there's other things we can do here. So we can add a join with another table. So one thing you'll notice while going through the dataset definitions is that all the EPAD LCS tables have this patient ID, which is the EPAD study ID, or a de-identified ID that's based on the EPAD study ID. So all of these tables can be joined together by using that patient ID. So if I select, I was looking at the EPAD LCS CDR table before. So I click Join Table. I can choose to join on the patient ID. You get to choose the type of join. In this case, it's going to be quite similar results, but if you're familiar with joins, there can be some sense in choosing a different one. Inner join will just mean that we'll only get data that appears in both tables, which is what we want here. So then we get this description here saying that we're going to be joining on the patient ID. Currently, we don't have any columns selected, but we will have to choose which columns we want from each data set. So I can choose that we want the patient ID, the ApoE result, some other biomarker results that are in this table, and then the CDR global score, and a couple of the other CDR results. Then when I click again to verify the custom view, we've now got a more complicated piece of SQL, but it's the same idea where you can edit this if you want. You can preview before actually creating the table. And so this has actually got fewer columns now than it did before, but it's got columns from both the biomarkers data and the CDR data. And creating that as a custom view, again, same as last time, will appear in the dataset list and can be interacted with from there. Now, just to kind of round this off, I'm going to add in a couple more joins. So I'm going to join on the patient attributes table and the discontinuation table as well. So this is, as you can see, this is building up more and more complex query, but it's the same idea each time where we're just joining on the patient ID. We're selecting a few columns from each data set. I'm just going to select a few columns from those new data sets now as well. So a few columns from this sort of socio-demographics data, and then a few columns from this discontinuation data as well. And again, the same process as before. It's now a more complex query, but we can just create that. So we've got CDR, socio-demographics, and discontinuation. So this, as an example, this could be your data now ready for analysis. You know, if you've got these EPAD LCS data release data sets, but there's different columns from each of these that you're interested in analyzing for your particular analysis. I think this is a pattern now that we've been supporting a few EPAD research access requests that we've seen a few times where people are getting access to the data. All the data is there, but it needs to be joined together into one ready analysis table. And I think going back to what Judy was referring to earlier about building a community and having people collaborate together on their research, this is something where having these steps and having people working in the same system, this is something that can be kind of distributed across different projects. So if there's intermediary results that are generated as part of your analysis, then these can be shared across, well, first of all, across EPAD, but then perhaps more widely as well in the future. So this analysis table that's just been generated, this could be shared across multiple workspaces if other people were interested in using that same data set, same analysis. Or maybe slightly more abstract, you could share just this SQL code and people could execute that within their workspace and it would give them the same result without having to actually transfer the data itself. Obviously, this is quite a simple example, but if you've done a bit more, some more complex analysis before to generate your analysis ready table, then that could save someone a lot of time and could cut down on the amount of repeated work that's being done, and also bring multiple research projects into using similar methods so they can be more easily compared across. So I guess just to showcase that, when I was clicking to verify my custom view and have the option to edit this SQL, I could copy that code, for example, and then go back to this Files tab I was showing earlier, where I can create, so I'm going to create a new file. I can create an SQL file, so and create this as a script that at the moment this is just going to, when I execute it, is going to run a select query for that same data set I've created earlier. But I can edit this in different ways to say, create a new table with my own name, custom name, to generate that and stay within the database, or continue editing the script to do something slightly different, join on more tables or add more filters. So one example might be to add some filters where I want to make sure that the participant hasn't been discontinued later in the study, for example. But maybe that's a slightly different piece of analysis that I want to do than someone else wants to do in their project, but the kind of core script is the same. We're joining on the same tables, we've just got maybe some slightly different filters to get down to the exact data set that we're going to use. So, I mean, maybe this is familiar to some of you on the call anyway, and this is all kind of obvious, but I think this modular approach to research can be quite useful in a community of research where there's lots of different pieces that do lots of different things that can be shared between multiple projects, especially with the kind of data preparation and data cleaning phase of a project. Can save a lot of repeated work if these can be shared easily. So now I've got this script that could create this analysis table on command. I can choose to airlock that. And airlock is what allows you to either to download things from the workspace or transfer them from one workspace that you have access to into another. So this is just summarizing the things I'm wanting to airlock. I can choose either to download or copy to another workspace. I'm going to choose to copy to another workspace. As an administrator in this workspace, I have the option to immediately approve this request. If you're a standard user in the workspace, you'll have to request approval, and then an administrator will have to approve that request. So I'm going to show what happens when you just click request approval. You get this message, and then in the summary tab, again, as a workspace administrator, I have the option to approve, reject, or comment for more detail on this request before making a decision. Let's approve for the moment. It takes a short time to prepare. If we just give that a couple moments, I'll soon have an option to copy that into another workspace. So here I've copied the script. As I say, that could be the table I'm copying to a different workspace. And this is just some intermediate results, but it could be a report or something, a more complete final output, a plot that someone's created, that could be shared between multiple workspaces, or in the case of final outputs, reports and plots could be downloaded from the workspace as well. So that's now complete, and I've now got the option to copy that script into the other workspace. Okay, so now we've generated this analysis table, let's move on to actually interacting with it. So now clicking on this analysis table, I've got a couple options here to either edit or analyze the data. If I click to analyze the data, this opens up our data table editor and data table analytics. So this is another different view from that preview we've seen before of the data that allows you to scroll through the data cell by cell. As I say, it's the data table editor, so it does allow you to edit these values in place. It's probably less relevant for our example here, but it can be done, and those edits will be all audited individually, referencing back to the audit log earlier. Really what I want to show here is this these data table analytics. So you can begin doing some basic analysis of this data. And this is like what I was showing earlier with the creating this analysis table through point and click that was generating SQL. This is doing some analysis through a point and click interface that will be generating R code, which can again be expanded on and shared in the same way. So there's a few ways of getting to the analysis, if you like, here. One way is to just select the kind of analysis you want to do. So if I want to create a box plot, I can click on that that module, and then it brings up the list of arguments that I need to provide. So if I want to plot maybe the just age as a box plot, then we can get that result. It runs automatically quite quickly. But there's also, so that's the only mandatory argument here, but a box plot without anything to compare against isn't very useful. So maybe we want to just split by the ApoE result. And that gives a more interesting plot, and we can quite quickly kind of iterate between different pieces of analysis just to explore the data. But for each time we do this, as well as creating the result, we also get a snippet of R code that can be used in the R console to generate that same result. So similar to the SQL example, I can copy this to clipboard from here. We can also send directly to the R console, as I mentioned earlier. I'll try that, but that will have some ongoing issues. Oh, so that's good. So that has worked. So we can view that that result. It's the same as what we have in the data table analytics. But we can also take that code, copy as a clipboard, and again from this Files tab, create a new file. What was this? It was just age by sex. And then save this as a reusable piece of analysis that runs on the analysis table within the workspace. And if you have some R knowledge, this could obviously be expanded on. You could add in some filters before you actually run the analysis itself, where you're filtering your data set for some specific ApoE result, for example, and then rerun the analysis and get different results depending on what filters you've added in there. Or you can customize the plot further. As you can see, this is quite a kind of baseline output for a plot. So you might want to add in some more colors and customize the plot in other ways. There are some options for this here, but obviously you can't provide every single option for customizing a plot within a UI. So this gets you 90% of the way there, and then you can add in the additional customization as part of the script. And as I mentioned, there's more than one way to get to your analysis. So as well as selecting the analysis you want to do and then choosing your variables, another way of going at it might be to select what you want to see and then see what analysis, or selecting what you want to analyze and then see what analysis fits those possibilities. So maybe we want to see what the ApoE results look like, and we want to compare those with the site. So as we were clicking those, this filters this list down to the analysis that corresponds to these types of data. And we can select a frequency bar chart, for example, see what the split of ApoE result is across each of the sites. And maybe swapping those around might have been a better idea. So swap those around and rerun it. You can see what the split of ApoE results is like at all the different sites. And then from this viewpoint, we can then see, well, what are I've created a frequency bar chart here, but what are the other pieces, different types of analysis that would be relevant for that same selection. So you can do a cross tabulation. Instead of getting those results as a bar chart, you get some raw numbers, or going more complicated. But you can run a binomial logistic regression. You definitely want some more variables in there for that to be useful, but that gives you a start. And if you're beginning to ask, well, we can see there are some differences here, but are those significant differences? You could run a chi-square test. But again, we might want to do some more filtering of the data before running such an analysis here, but it is something you can do to begin exploring the data. In fact, at the moment, this is outputting some warnings, just saying there may be some issues with the results of this output. Okay, so that's a quick introduction to the data table analytics. This is something that we've developed a set of modules for, a set of both modules that output visualizations and things that output more sort of things that run statistical tests, things that output summary statistics and things like that. We've tried to cover kind of the top few most common pieces of analysis you want to do, but obviously there's many other things you can do, especially with R and all the packages they have available. So this is something we'll be expanding on, but at the moment the idea is to take these modules, explore your data with them, and then move into the R console as your analysis becomes more complicated. But you can get quite far with these, at least from an exploratory purpose, as long as you've set up your data beforehand with the methods I showed earlier of joining your data together and providing the correct filters, begin getting a good idea of what the data looks like and start answering some questions about the data. And now just to finish off, I'd like to show a more complete pipeline of analysis that can be done using R and SQL scripts. So for that, there's a few scripts I prepared. So this is an example of an R script that's a bit more involved than that one we just copied from the data table analytics, where it's reading in a table from the Datasets tab. It's loading some libraries, which you'll find details about in the knowledge base. We do mirror a lot of packages from CRAN if you're an R user, so those should all be installable and usable within the workspace. Then we're going to do some analysis on that data and generate a derived variable, splitting the A beta results into quantiles, and then writing this table out to a new table called biomarkers with quantiles. And we can preview this data here again. So this is another way of preparing tables that are ready for your analysis, where we've got all the tables from the original biomarkers data, but we've calculated some new fields that we want to use in our analysis. And again, referring back to the community aspect, this is something that could be shared. This script is not the final output of any research question, but it is possibly a useful intermediate result that people might want to use, generating some derived data that can be shared across Workspace. Then another script we've got here is this join tables.sql. So this is very similar to before, but just joining some different tables together, the R bands data, the CDR data, and again, some of the sociodemographics data. And then finally, something I haven't mentioned before is a report script. So this R&W mixes together both R code and LaTeX code to generate PDF documents. So I'm hopefully going to be able to, in the R console, execute this report script to read in those two tables that were generated by the R script and the SQL script I showed, actually rerun those scripts to regenerate those on the fly, and then do some analysis, create some plots, and output all those into a single report. So that's generated here. And this can be previewed here, but possibly more usefully can be saved as a file within the workspace. Previewed with a larger viewer, and this is an example again of something that you may want to airlock from the workspace. If this was something that wants to be shared or published, then at this point this could be airlocked, and it's embedding, running R code within the report itself and embedding those plots within the report. So if you wanted to update some of the analysis that's done to, maybe swap around a few values, then that should be quick to edit and rerun to update your results as you're going. That's produced a new report, but now we've got 3x3 quantiles instead of a 4x4. Just to complete this airlock request, I could choose now, instead of copying to a different workspace, I'm choosing to download for publishing. And I'll just automatically approve it this time and Summary tab, I have the option to download that report. I think that's covered quite a lot of the features, going from the features that are easier to use if you're not necessarily an R user or an SQL user, that I think can be quite valuable to do at least at the beginning of an analysis, when you're just getting to grips with the data and exploring the data, and then going on to showing how the more advanced tools in the workspace can be used for creating these visualizations and more involved data analysis pipelines. I'm happy to take questions via email as well after the webinar. Yeah, that's all from me at the moment.
Okay.
Thanks, Harry. I hope everybody's found that useful. As both Harry and I have said, we're both individually, but also through the help request on the web page, quite happy to help and support you get used to using these systems and get insight into the data. Just one other thing to say is that one of the advantages of setting up the system, as Harry has just shown, and saving a lot of scripts and things, is that as we produce more data sets, you'll be able to apply and engage with the next data set. For instance, we've released 500.1. The next one will be v1500.0, and so that you can then rerun the same set of scripts and the same set of reports, using the uploaded new data sets. And so this will save an awful lot of work and a lot of and aid a lot of collaboration. So we really hope that people will make the most of the facilities that are available here. It's a really state-of-the-art approach to bringing people to the data rather than giving you the data and sending you away with it. And as Craig has said before, this is very much the future of collaborative data research, and we really hope that you'll take the time and effort to engage with this and make the most of it. So that's all from us, I think. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye.